Hey, are you an entrepreneur out there that's really trying to get clear on how to take the next steps in your business? Maybe you've got a great idea, or maybe you've got a great strategy, but you're struggling with what steps to take forward. Do you have a business that maybe you're struggling with creating six figures in it? Maybe your business isn't producing enough income for you to leave your 9 to 5 and be able to do it full time, and that is your dream. Well, you're in luck. I've thought about you because we wanted to provide more value to people that were looking to create their first ever six-figure business. So we released the Six Figure Academy, and the Academy is a 10-week long cohort where you're going to go through every single week specific strategies to help you take your business to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a starting out entrepreneur and you've got an idea, or you may be a serial entrepreneur but have struggled with really finding lasting success in your business. If you'd like to connect with this academy, feel free to join us. Take a look at our website at www.6figacademy.com. That's right, www.6figacademy.com. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. What is going on, my beautiful people? Welcome to yet again another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin. I'm your host, and I am elated. I'm super excited to have you joining me on yet again another episode. Let's jump right into this episode. I'm excited to talk about this topic. Let me first give a shout out and a kudos to my dear brother TJ, who actually we had a very, very long conversation. And he brought up this topic that I'm actually going to be sharing with you throughout this podcast. And it was a really powerful video that we were talking about, essentially, from the famous, the GOAT himself, Tony Robbins. If any of you have been hiding under a rock, you may know, or you should be familiar with Tony Robbins, probably the most sought after, one of the most successful public speakers, motivators, life changer, just world renowned in what he does in his space. A lot of what we know around personal development and what practices are displayed in this day and age, a lot of them come from Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is very much so the father of a lot of practices and things that are deployed today from a coaching, personal development perspective. So I want to talk about this topic that once I listened to it, there's a video. And I can provide the link of the video in the show notes if you guys want to check it out, because I think it's super powerful. And I want to talk about this topic of the 6 human needs. I'm going to dive into 6 things that every human needs. And I thought it was a great topic to share and to discuss, because once I watched the video, I realized how true and accurate all of this stuff is. And so much so that I forwarded out to a bunch of people that I know and that I love, because I wanted them to take a look at it. And at the end of the video, he made a statement, and I documented that statement. And it's such a bold, profound statement. And it just helped me so much to really have the right perspective of humanity and people and how people move and how people act, right, based on these human needs that we're going to talk about. So take a pen, get your notes ready. I want you to jot this stuff down as you're listening to this episode, because I want you to, after you listen to this episode, I want you to really start walking in what it is to look at people from this perspective. So again, we're going to be talking about the 6 human needs. What are the 6 things that every human need? And we'll first start with number 1. So the first thing that every human needs is certainty. Now, what I will first start by saying is, these human needs are differ. So every human needs these things, but the percentages and what people lead with are different based on how that person is wired. So everybody has the necessity to have or need all these 6 things, but based on that person, there are things that lead at the top. And I'll also talk to you guys a little bit about my need, and the one that is at the top of mine. And so I also would love to get some feedback from you guys on what is your most or maybe your top 2 or top 3 significant needs based on the list that we're going to talk about today. So the first human need, the first thing that every human needs is certainty, which is the assurance you can avoid pain and gain pleasure. Every human has this necessity for certainty. And you'll often bump and run into people that you really understand this based on how they talk, how they communicate with you, how they're wired. But it's this assurance that you can avoid pain and gain pleasure. So it's this, I need to be certain. And I think this topic is so important because one of the most powerful things around entrepreneurship and running businesses is that I believe it's one of the most it's one of the most aspects of life that you have to really know who you are, and like your traumas and your fears and all that stuff will come to the forefront as you look to grow your business. As a coach and helping people grow their businesses, one of the things that always happen is, there's things that are holding people back. And when you realize what's holding people back from them growing their business to the level that they want to, is sometimes things that have nothing to do with business. It has everything to do with mindset. And a lot of it boils down to how they're wired and what their needs are. And so assurance, right, as we talk about, or certainty, I want to know, right, like, do you have this like necessity for certainty in everything that you do? Are you someone that you can't take risk, or you don't like to get outside of your box because it's not certain enough? And this is not like to point a finger at anybody in this. This is just these are all neutral statements based on how the people are. But what I also want to be able to talk about in this episode is maybe some of the drawbacks to that potential need and how to maybe spot that need and how to identify it. So the first one is certainty. Second one, number 2, is uncertainty. So this is getting real deep. No, seriously. But so the first one is certainty. Everybody needs certainty, but also everybody has a flavor or a necessity for uncertainty or variety. And this is the need for the unknown, change, or new stimuli. You may be someone who lead with variety. You may lead with uncertainty. You may be someone who you smile in the face of opposition, or smile in the face of the unknown, or the things that you're not familiar with. And you actually take on, look at new opportunities, new things with a whole new vigor and a whole new life. I believe this is a part of when, even if you aren't leading with uncertainty, if you are a personality and you've been doing the same thing for, in maybe a career profession, or, maybe in a very long-term dating relationship, and then like you leave that relationship or you leave that job, and then you get this new vigor on life, it's because you've had everything so certain that now you've got this uncertainty that's also starting to drive a lot of your like fulfillment and a lot of your outlook on life. So everybody first needs certainty, second needs uncertainty or variety. And the third thing, and this is actually mine, the thing that I lead out with the most is I have a need for significance. And significance is feeling unique, important, special, or needed. Even when I actually did my Strength Finder, I recommend that all of you, if you're not into like the personality assessments or really understanding who you are, is to really start to dive deep into this stuff, because I believe the more that you learn about yourself, the more self-aware you become. And the more self-aware you become, the more you start to learn how you better yourself. Often it's a challenge to better yourself if you're not self-aware, if you don't know who you are, how you're wired, how you think, etc. And so it's great to get these like third-party perspectives in like ranking systems to know like how you stack, like how do you process information, what's more important to you. And so it's ironic that this was on this list, because that's number 1 in my Strength Finder. Number 1 in my Strength Finder is significance. And to this point, it's feeling unique, important, special, and needed. And so much so that for me, significance, it bleeds into the things that I do. So I personally don't want to do things that are insignificant, or things that I determine to be insignificant. And so everything for me always has to be big, and it always has to be, with the best intention, and, things just can't stay small, and things can't just go slow. Like, it's got to go fast, it's got to be big, it's got to be significant, right? It's got to make a big impact. It's got to change people's lives. Like, that's how I naturally think. And not everybody thinks that way. And so I have to be careful with that, because I could find myself easily downplaying or talking like negatively, or even discouraging other people and their ideas if it doesn't seem significant to me and to my perspective. So that's something that I have to be mindful of. And it's a gift, right? It's a gift because it allows me to want to walk and be in excellence, but also it's a curse, because that can lead to like perfectionism, and that can lead into, all of the like it's got to be perfect before I do it, and not trusting people to do it at the same level that you can. So significance definitely has its negatives associated with it. The fourth one, we're moving along. The fourth one is connection. Every human has a need for connection or love, which is a strong feeling of closeness or union with someone or something. I will first say that as a child of God, as a Christian, for me, connection is first to God. And so like for me, I think connection is so important. But I think connection and love comes from it. The way that we give love is often based on how we receive love. And so everyone has a desire and a need to be loved. And that's a strong feeling of closeness or union with someone or something. And so even more so, like you've got people who they may not like feel loved by other people. And so they get like animals. They might get a dog, or they might get a cat, or they might get a bird, or they may get some other animal that will show them what they think is love, because that's a human need. Humans need love. And so based on the kind of person you are, so like one of the ways that you can probably tell somebody who has a high necessity for connection or love could be people that have a lot of pets, especially dogs. Because like the dope thing about dogs is like it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how your day was. It doesn't matter how much money you got. They're going to love you. They typically going to cuddle up with you. They're typically, going to be happy to see you every time you walk in the house, that kind of thing, right? And so connection and love is also one of the 6 human needs. Every human on the planet of this earth needs connection and love. The fifth one, we're moving along. The fifth one is growth. Every human has a need for growth. This is so important because you may find yourself desiring more or getting frustrated with where you are in life because you haven't like accomplished anything, or you haven't, in your perspective, seen significant growth. And so when you haven't seen significant growth, it taps and it pulls on like that like lack mentality from you. And so you have such an innate desire to expand your capacity and learn more and expand your capabilities. And so be thinking always like, how am I handling my growth bucket? And I want you, as you guys are listening to me talk about these 6 things, and I'll start at the top and refresh a lot of these for you. But I want you to be thinking like, how do you pour into these things? Because if you don't, these can sometimes spiral and show themselves up in negative, adverse ways. All right. So let's start back from the top. First one is certainty. Second one is uncertainty or variety. The third one is significance. The fourth one is connection or love. The fifth one is growth. And the sixth one, the last but not least, is contribution. Every human has a need to contribute, a sense of service and focus on helping, giving to, and supporting others. Every human has a need to contribute, a sense of service, focus, or helping and giving to supporting others. You may lead with the contribution. I believe that people that lead with the contribution need, they typically are very selfless and sometimes put themselves on the back burner even more so. They could be the person that they would give the shirt off their back, and they would give somebody their last dollar, and they would sometimes even pour out of an empty cup. They give whatever they've got to make sure that they can help other people because they have this desire, this need to provide or render service to other people. And so those are the 6 human needs. And once I watched this video and I understood what these human needs were, it changed my perspective on a lot, because and here's the analogy, is because here's the piece to this, is what I also realize is that these human needs are so important, because if you don't realize that these human needs are where they are, then you will find yourself in life doing like terrible things just to fill the need. So I'm gonna give you an example. So I've got 2 Dobermans. I've got 2 dogs, and love the dogs. They're great dogs, well trained. Both of the dogs that I have. My younger one is a girl. Her name is Aria, and she is well trained. She's normal trained, great pet, great dog. And so one day we were in my office, and I have this bathroom right off of my office, and I was actually on a conference call. And next thing you know, I just hear her like licking out of what sound to be a bowl, right? It sounded like my dog was licking out of the water bowl. And at first I didn't think anything of it. And then like it sounds so close. I was like, why? I didn't know I put a water bowl that close to me, right? And so I look over and here she is drinking water out of the toilet bowl. It wasn't her food bowl, it wasn't her water bowl. It was the toilet bowl. And when she was doing it, because I was on a conference call and I was like literally talking, so I couldn't like interrupt the conference call and just like correct her or yell at her or anything like that. So I literally had to let her just drink out of the toilet bowl. And so by the time I finished up, I realized, like, I thought to myself, I was like, why? Because she never drinks out of the toilet bowl. That's not something that I've ever allowed her to do. She's ever seen. It just never happened. But what I realized was that she was so thirsty. She had a need for water, and that need was so high. And I realized that I hadn't given her water all day. This was probably like 5 o'clock. And after they ate that morning, I didn't actually give them water. So she had such a need for water that it didn't matter like that she was breaking the rules. All that mattered was that her needs got met. And it didn't matter at what capacity she did it for, how she did it. She just made sure that she met her need. Another scenario. I had our daughter. My daughter is she a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, she had a stomach bug, and this stomach bug was it had her throwing up, and she just wasn't feeling well for probably 3 or 4 days. And we are, this is kind of like day 4, calling the doctors, took her to urgent care, and they put her on some fluids and kind of sent her back home. She was eating popsicles and all that kind of stuff, but just trying to keep her from throwing up. And there's a stomach bug that just was going around. My son brought it home from school. He had it for a few days, but he got through it. Well, it affected my daughter completely different. Long story short, my daughter began having seizures at the house, and our daughter, thankfully, that our kids haven't ever had to deal with any major health conditions like this. And so my daughter's having seizures at the house, and so now everybody's in panic mode, right? And it's like, all right, time to call 911. I realized that they weren't coming fast enough, and so I hung up on them. Even though I'm a polite person, I hung up on them, got in the car. And thankfully, like the hospital is only about 5 minutes away from my house. So got in the car, and when I tell you that allegedly that I broke every speed light or every stoplight, ran through every stop sign, I ran on I drove on the opposite side of the highway. I did whatever it took to get my daughter to the hospital as fast as I humanly could. I went on the opposite side on like a 4-lane intersection. Driving on the opposite side of the road, allegedly. But what you realize is that what was more important than keeping the rules, or what was more important than stopping at a stoplight, was getting my daughter to the hospital, because I felt that was a need as a father that I needed to make sure was that, like, I didn't know, right, if my daughter would have lived another day or another minute if we didn't get her to the hospital at the time that we did. And God willing, thankfully, like, she's good. She's healed. Her body's good. But like, I tell that story to say, when you have needs that are not met, it doesn't matter what thing is in the way. It doesn't matter the morals you have. It doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter what guidelines you have, what parameters, what boundaries you put in place. When the need is great enough, as a human, as a person, you will do often things that are not becoming of you. You will do things that are not like you just to meet the need. And often you will do these things subconsciously. Like, sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing this thing, but in fact, what you really are doing is you're really meeting a need. And so instead of seeing people's behaviors, I hope, my goal for you is that you're going to start seeing their attempts to meet their own needs. Instead of seeing someone just having a behavior, just doing something, just taking random acts, just getting up and just being playful or just smiling or something, like, that's not how people are. I want you to realize that instead of seeing people's behaviors, that you have to start seeing people as they're attempting to meet their own needs. Every single thing that someone's going to do, they're attempting to meet their needs. And when people do stupid things, they are just starving to meet the need in the way that isn't very effective, or isn't very effective in the short term, but it hurts them in the long term. So when people do stupid things, I'll say this again, they're just starving to meet their needs in a way that isn't very effective. And or it's effective in the short term, but it's not effective in the long term. And so, like, for example, when I talk about like my dog drinking the water out of the toilet bowl, it met her need in the short term, right? And thankfully, like, dogs have like a much stronger GI tract than us, but like, it's probably not the best thing to drink toilet water, right? If I just drank toilet water and I did it often, it probably wouldn't go well for me. Like, I probably would get sick. I probably wouldn't feel good, right? So, but if I'm thirsty, and if it's either drink that water or die, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna drink the water. And so many of us in life, we got to start thinking that when you may be, and I want you to start like being real with yourself, that you may be in a place, or you may have done things that were not becoming of you. You may have done something in your life that is just not you. It's just not who you are. It just doesn't align to your character, doesn't align to who you are morally. It may not align to, your religion or your relationship with God. It just may not be connected to who you are as a person. But could it be that act or whatever you were doing, that you were doing something to meet a need? And my goal for this episode today is that you start learning what your real needs are, and that you understand what areas of my life do I lead with. And in whatever areas in my life that I lead with, I also understand that those are the areas that I have to be mindful to make sure that they're getting poured into, and that I'm protecting and I'm putting boundaries around those. Because if those areas that you lead with, if I lead with significance, I have to make sure that I put boundaries around significance. Because if significant is under supported and it's not poured into, it could have me doing dumb things for the sake of significance, right? And so in this episode, I really want you to start to not just look at your own behaviors, but look at other people's behaviors. And don't look at their behaviors as just simple behaviors. Look at their behaviors as attempts to meeting their own needs. Look at their behaviors as things that they do as a result of a need that's being met. Everyone, every single day, all day long, is only trying to meet a need. A simple, basic human requirement that we have is to meet our needs. And so everything that we do is going to be to meet a need, right? If you're afraid, you're meeting a need, and you back yourself out of something, you're meeting a need. If you're afraid to have a conversation with somebody, if you are going to drink a water, if you're going to get something to eat, if you're going to say hi to somebody, if you're going to shake somebody's hand, every single thing that you're going to do, every single behavior is to meet a need. And I want you to be intentional about watching people around you and start to think, what human need is this person meeting? Or even in your spouse, or when it comes to your children or the people that are closest to you, start to look at their life and start to look at how they're wired and how they communicate and what things they say, and see if you could determine what needs lead out the most, right? So I'm going to recap them. The first one is certainty. The second one is uncertainty or variety. The third one is significance. The fourth one is connection or love. The fifth one is growth. And number 6 is contribution. And that summarizes the 6 human needs that everyone has. All right. And so I'm going to leave you with that. I wish you continue to give our podcast a rating and review. I thank you so much for all the support. We're continuing to grow this channel. Please share this with anybody that you love and anybody that you think should be a part of this pivot mindset community. And remember, life is all about the pivots. And those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Peace.